The QA-Thrin had conquered 47 worlds before they reached Earth. Their war machines had crushed civilizations that had mastered fusion power. Their soldiers had broken armies equipped with plasma weapons. They expected Earth to fall in 3 days. They made landfall in East Africa. Captain Amadi Okonkwo stood on the observation deck of the Kenyan Defense Forces Mobile Command Center, watching the alien dropships descend like burning stars over the Serengeti. Behind him, holographic displays showed similar landings across Tanzania, Uganda, and Ethiopia. The aliens were establishing a beachhead, just as the Unified Earth Command had predicted. What they hadn't predicted was humanity's response. "They're ignoring the cities," said Colonel Jabari Mensah, his Ghanaian accent thick with exhaustion. He'd been awake for 36 hours. "They want the resources first. The mines, the water, the geothermal stations. Then that's where we'll meet them," Amadi said, his Nigerian accent clipped with tension. His comm unit buzzed. A private channel. Despite everything, the alien invasion, the end of the world as they knew it, his heart still jumped when he saw her name. "I have to take this," he told Jabari, stepping away. Dr. Zuri Kamau appeared on his screen, her face tight with worry. She was at Nairobi General Hospital, still in her surgical scrubs, exhausted from a 12-hour shift treating the first wave of casualties. "Amadi, they're saying the aliens will be in Nairobi within 48 hours. They won't make it that far," he said, with more confidence than he felt. "Don't lie to me. Not now." Her dark eyes held his. "I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll survive this. Promise me we'll have that life we talked about." They've been engaged for 8 months. The wedding was supposed to be in December, a big celebration in her family's village outside Nakuru. Her mother had already bought the fabric for her dress. "Zuri, promise me, Amadi. Say the words." He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But he'd never lied to her before, and he wouldn't start now. Not even to give her comfort. "I promise I'll fight like hell to come back to you," he said quietly. "That's all I can promise." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there were tears, but her voice was steady. "Then fight like hell, soldier. Because I'm not planning this wedding by myself." The aliens learned their first lesson about humanity that day. We know our land. And we fight harder when we have something to come home to. The QA-Thrin were apex predators from a world of open plains and direct confrontation. They had never faced an enemy that refused to be where they expected. They learned about ambush at Lake Victoria, where Nigerian Navy frogmen attached magnetic charges to their water harvesters. Amadi led his rangers in support, coordinating the strike from shore positions. The aliens discovered that humans could hold their breath for minutes, could become one with murky water, could strike and vanish like crocodiles. They learned about terrain at the Great Rift Valley, where Maasai rangers, men and women who'd spent their lives tracking lions, led mechanized QA-Thrin walkers into lava fields and quicksand. Amadi's tactical planning turned their knowledge into devastating ambushes. The aliens' thermal sensors were useless against warriors who'd learned to mask their heat signatures with mud and ash. Between operations, Amadi stole moments to call Zuri, sometimes just to hear her voice, sometimes to tell her about the soldiers under his command, young men and women who reminded him why they were fighting. "There's a kid in my unit, Kamau," he told her one night, sitting in a forward operating base in the Aberdares. 19 years old. From Kisumu. He showed me a picture of his girlfriend today. "They look so young, Zuri. So damn young." "They are young," she said softly. "But so were we once. Remember?" He smiled despite everything. They'd met in university, before he'd joined the military. She was pre-med. He was studying engineering. She thought he was arrogant. He thought she was too serious. They'd both been wrong. "When this is over," he said, "I'm taking you to the coast. Just us. No work. No war, no." The alarm sounded. QA-Thrin fast attack craft, incoming. "I have to go," he said. "I know. I love you. I love you too." The call disconnected. He grabbed his rifle and ran. Amadi stood in the ruins of Nairobi, ash falling like snow. The QA-Thrin had unleashed orbital strikes after losing 3 straight engagements. 2 million dead in an instant. The message was clear: resist and we'll burn your cities. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because Nairobi General Hospital had been in the strike zone. Colonel Mensah found him 3 hours later, still searching through rubble with his bare hands. Other soldiers were pulling him back, telling him it was no use, that no one could have survived, but he kept digging, kept searching, kept hoping. Amadi, Mensah said quietly. Amadi, stop. She was here. She was right here. I talked to her 6 hours ago. She was doing emergency surgery. She said. His voice broke. I have to find her. Mensah gripped his shoulders. Listen to me. The medical staff evacuated to Nakuru 4 hours before the strike. Dr. Kamau is alive. She's safe. The world came rushing back. Amadi's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the rubble, shaking. She's alive. She's alive. And she's been trying to reach you for 2 hours. Your comm unit was destroyed. Mensah handed him a replacement. Amadi's hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the controls. Then Zuri's face appeared on the screen, and the sound that came out of him was something between a laugh and a sob. Amadi, I thought I lost you. God, Zuri, I thought. I know. I'm here. I am okay. Tears streamed down her face. But Amadi, my hospital, my colleagues, 37 doctors and nurses, they stayed behind to stabilize critical patients. They're all. She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. 2 million dead, including people she'd worked with, trained with, laughed with. Friends. Mentors. The cost of resistance, written in ash and silence. We're going to make them pay for this, Amadi said, and his voice was different now. Harder. Colder. I swear to you, Zuri, we're going to make them pay. Colonel Mensah had lost his sister and her 3 children in the same strike. He stood nearby, his face carved from stone. They want us to break, Mensah said, to surrender, to prove we're just another species they can dominate. Amadi looked at him, and something passed between them, an understanding, a shared rage that had transmuted into something more dangerous than anger, into purpose. Then we show them what happens when you mistake our love for weakness, Amadi said. Call the council. All of them. It's time for Kilimanjaro. They came from every corner of the continent. South African mechanized infantry with their aging but deadly Roycat armored vehicles. Moroccan electronic warfare specialists who'd learned to jam QA-3 communications. Senegalese combat ingénieur. Congolese bush fighters who moved through jungle like ghosts. Ethiopian drone operators. Egyptian armor divisions. Botswana Logistics Corps. Somali irregular forces who fought with whatever they could carry. And more. So many more. They gathered at the foot of Kilimanjaro, Africa's highest peak, where the QA-3 had established their primary command and control nexus. The aliens had chosen the mountain for its strategic position, its resources, its symbolic value. They didn't understand that mountains have their own symbolism for humans, especially African mountains, where kingdoms had been born, where warriors had stood against colonizers. Amadi was given command of the Kenyan 3rd Ranger Battalion for the assault. Before the briefing, before the planning sessions, before everything that would come next, he made one last call to Zuri. She was at the Nakuru Field Hospital, still treating casualties, still working herself to exhaustion. But when she saw him on the screen, she smiled. That same smile he'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. So, Kilimanjaro, she said. You heard. Everyone's heard. They're saying it's a suicide mission. It's not. We've got good intelligence, solid planning. Amadi, she cut him off gently. Don't. I'm a doctor. I know what acceptable casualties means in military terms. I know what you're walking into. He was quiet for a moment. I am sorry. About the wedding. About. Stop. You listen to me, Amadi Okonkwo. Her voice was fierce now. You're going to climb that mountain. You're going to do what you do best. And then you're going to come back down, and we're going to get married. Not in December. Not in some big celebration. The moment you get back, we find whoever can legally marry us, and we do it. Understood, Zuri. I don't care if you're covered in mud and blood and haven't slept in 3 days. I don't care if we have to do it in a tent in the middle of a war zone. I've waited long enough to be your wife, and I'm not waiting anymore. So you make it back. You hear me? You make it back. He smiled, feeling something warm cut through all the cold anger. Yes, ma'am. I love you. I love you too. Always. General Kwame Asani addressed them all on the night before the assault. He was a small man from Kumasi, Ghana, with silver in his beard and scars on his hands from 40 years of service. They chose this place because they think high ground means invincibility, he said, his voice carrying across the camps in a dozen languages, each translated in real time. But we know something they don't. We know that mountains fall, empires fall, and all conquerors eventually fall. Tomorrow we climb, and we teach them the only lesson that matters. Humanity does not kneel. The assault began at 0300 hours. Amadi led the Kenyan 3rd Ranger Battalion up the southern face, using goat paths that hadn't appeared on any map for 100 years. His grandmother had shown him these paths when he was 9, before military service, before the weight of rank and responsibility. He'd brought Zuri up here once, years ago, on a camping trip. They'd watched the sunrise from Uhuru Peak and talked about their future. Now he was using those same paths to wage war. The QA-3 had sensors, drones, automated defenses, but they'd calibrated them for frontal assault, for conventional warfare. They'd never considered that humans would climb a mountain in darkness, carrying rocket launchers and machine guns, moving in complete silence through volcanic rock and alpine desert. First contact came at 0547 hours, just before dawn. The QA-3 defensive line shattered as humans erupted from positions the aliens had considered impassable. Close-quarters combat, brutal, personal, desperate. The aliens were stronger, faster, better armored. But they'd never fought an enemy that refused to stay down, that turned every rock into cover, that used the mountain itself as a weapon. Lance Corporal Tendai Moyo, a Zimbabwean sharpshooter, held a ridge for 17 minutes against a QA-3 counterattack. Amadi tried to get reinforcements to him, but the aliens had cut off that approach. When it finally broke through, they found Tendai out of ammunition, badly wounded, surrounded by 12 alien bodies. He'd fought the last 3 with his knife. "Did we take it?" he gasped. "We took it," Amadi told him, gripping the young man's hand. "You held and we took it. You did good, soldier." Tendai smiled. Then he was gone. Amadi closed the boy's eyes and kept climbing. The QA-3 command nexus sat at 5,300 meters, where the air was thin and the temperature never rose above freezing. It was a fortress of alien alloy and advanced technology, protected by energy shields and automated weapon systems. The combined African forces hit it from 7 directions simultaneously. General Asani himself led the main assault, riding in the commander's hatch of an ancient T-72 tank that had no business being this high on a mountain. Around him, human ingenuity turned impossible into inevitable. Engineers collapsed lava tubes to create new approach routes. Drone operators used atmospheric interference to blind alien sensors. Infantry used their oxygen deprivation, as tactical advantage, knowing they could function at altitude better than invaders from a low-gravity world. Amadi was with the final push into the Nexus itself. He'd lost half his battalion getting this far. The names ran through his mind like a litany. Okello, dead holding the 3rd tier. Wanjuru, killed by alien plasma, securing the thermal vent. Kamau, young Kamau from Kisumu, who'd shown him that picture of his girlfriend, crushed when a QA-3 walker fell on his position. Each name was a weight. Each death a promise to make this matter. But they were inside. The QA-3 commander stood in the central control room, 2.5 meters of armored alien warrior. Its translator crackled. "You cannot win. We have conquered 47 worlds. We are inevitable." Colonel Mensah stepped forward, limping from a wound in his leg, dried blood on his uniform. He looked at the alien with those cold, terrible eyes. "We've been conquered before," he said. "By slavers, by colonizers, by people who thought we were less than human. You know what we learned?" He raised his weapon. "We learned that everything that conquers eventually falls. And we learned how to be the ones who make them fall." The alien shields were damaged. One shot was all it took. Amadi immediately moved to the communications array. "All units, Nexus is secure. Repeat, Nexus is secure." beginning shutdown sequence. As the alien systems went dark, Earth Orbital Command confirmed. The QA-3 fleet was breaking orbit. They were retreating. They'd won. But even in victory, the aliens had one last act of spite. Amadi watched from the mountain as orbital strikes hit cities that had supported the assault. Accra, Addis Ababa, Kigali, Johannesburg, Nakuru. His comm unit was already buzzing with casualty reports. The field hospital had taken a direct hit. Amadi's hands were numb as he opened the channel, as he tried to reach Zuri, as he waited for her face to appear on the screen. Static. He tried again, and again, and again. Amadi, General Asani's hand on his shoulder. Let me. No. Amadi's voice was hoarse. No, I need to. She was there. She was in Nakuru. The hospital, it was. He couldn't finish. Couldn't breathe. The world was spinning, and he couldn't make it stop. Mensa was there too, his face grim. We're getting updated casualty lists. The hospital staff, an incoming call. Emergency channel. Amadi almost dropped the comm unit trying to accept it. A nurse's face appeared. He recognized her, Aisha, one of Zuri's colleagues. She was covered in dust and blood, her left arm in a makeshift sling. Captain Okonkwo, she said. I'm sorry, I couldn't reach you sooner. The communications tower. Where's Zuri? He couldn't keep the desperation out of his voice. Is she? She's alive. Aisha's expression was complicated. But Captain, you need to get here. Now. The hospital had been mostly destroyed. The surgical wing, where Zuri had been working, had taken the brunt of the orbital strike. But the evacuation protocols she'd helped design had saved hundreds of lives. Staff and patients had made it to the underground bunkers. Most of them. Amadi found her in a triage tent, lying on a cot. Her right leg was splinted, and there were burns along her left side. She was pale from blood loss, but conscious. When she saw him, she tried to sit up. Don't, he said, kneeling beside her. His hands hovered over her, afraid to touch, afraid he'd hurt her. Zuri, you're alive, she whispered. You made it down. I promised I'd fight like hell to come back to you. Guess we're both terrible at following orders. I was supposed to evacuate with the first wave. She smiled weakly. But I had patients in surgery. Couldn't leave them. You saved them. I tried. Lost 3 on the table when the strike hit. The building collapsed. If Aisha hadn't pulled me out. She closed her eyes. I'm so tired, Amadi. I know. Rest now. I'm here. You won, didn't you? The mountain. We won. Good. Her hand found his. Was it worth it? All those people who died. All the cities we lost. Was it worth it? He thought about Tendai and Kamau and the hundreds of others. He thought about Nairobi and Nakuru and Accra burning. He thought about the price humanity had paid, that Africa had paid. Ask me that in 100 years, he said finally. When humans are still free. When children are born who never knew the QA-3. When we've turned this scar into strength. Will you be there with me? In 100 years. In this life or the next one, he promised. You're stuck with me now, Dr. Kamau. Not Kamau, she corrected, her voice drowsy with painkillers. We were supposed to get married, remember? The moment you got back. He laughed, feeling tears on his face. You want to get married right now? You're in a hospital bed. Technically, I'm in a tent. And yes, right now, before the universe tries to kill us again. So they did. Colonel Mensa stood as witness. A Ugandan chaplain who'd survived the hospital bombing performed the ceremony. Zuri wore a hospital gown. Amadi was covered in mud and dried blood and hadn't slept in 3 days, exactly as she'd predicted. When the chaplain asked if there were rings, Amadi pulled a piece of paracord from his tactical vest and tied it around her finger. Temporary, he promised. I'll get you a proper one. I like this one, she said. It means you climbed a mountain and came back to me. They were pronounced husband and wife as the sun set over the ruins of Nakuru. General Asani opened a bottle of something that might have been whiskey. The surviving hospital staff cheered. For a moment, just one moment, the war felt far away. Then reality came crashing back. The QA-3 fled Earth orbit, their fleet broken. The invasion was over. Humanity had won. The death toll was catastrophic. 43 million dead across Africa. Entire cities reduced to rubble. Refugees by the tens of millions. Infrastructure destroyed. Economy shattered. Ahmadi spent the next 2 years in recovery and reconstruction operations. Zuri's leg eventually healed, though she walked with a slight limp. She returned to medicine, running a clinic for soldiers dealing with trauma and loss. They bought a small house outside what was being rebuilt as New Nairobi. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Sometimes Ahmadi would wake up at night, reaching for weapons that weren't there, fighting battles that were over. Zuri would hold him until the shaking stopped, until he remembered where he was, who he was. They both carried scars, physical and otherwise, but they were alive, and they were together. They built a memorial 3 years after the war ended, carved directly into Kilimanjaro's stone. 15 million names, soldiers and civilians, the ones who fought and the ones who died in the cities that paid the price. At the top, a simple inscription in every African language, and then in every Earth language. Here stood humanity's shield. Here fell Africa's children. Here broke the conquerors. Never forget the price of freedom. General Ahmadi Okonkwo attended the dedication ceremony in his dress uniform. He was 45 years old and fell 100. Zuri stood beside him, one hand on her pregnant belly. Their first child, a daughter they planned to name Tendai, after the young soldier who'd held the ridge. Colonel Mintz's name was on the wall. He died 2 years after the battle, finally succumbing to injuries he'd refused to have properly treated because hospitals were needed for younger soldiers. Ahmadi touched Mintz's name, and Tendai's, and Kamau's, and the names of 247 soldiers from his battalion who'd climbed that mountain and never come back down. Do you regret it? Zuri asked quietly. The war, the cost, all of it. Ahmadi looked out over the memorial, at the flags from every African nation, at the crowds of people who'd come to remember. Veterans in wheelchairs, children who'd been orphaned, widows and widowers, the living and the ghosts. I regret every person we lost, he said. Every life cut short, every family torn apart. I'll carry that weight until the day I die. But we're still here. Humanity's still free. Our daughter will grow up in a world where she doesn't have to fight aliens or live on her knees. He put his arm around his wife. So no, I don't regret fighting. I just wish the price hadn't been so high. Zuri leaned into him. They'll remember, won't they? What Africa did, what we sacrificed. The ones who matter will. Our children, their children. He gestured to the memorial. This mountain will stand for 1,000 years. And every person who climbs it will know that this is where humanity made its stand. This is where we refuse to break. The ceremony concluded. Politicians gave speeches. Croissant. People wept and remembered and held each other close. As the sun set, painting Kilimanjaro in gold and red, Ahmadi and Zuri walked away from the crowds, down the mountain path toward home. Behind them, carved in stone, 15 million names stood as testament to the price of freedom. Ahead of them, their daughter kicked in the womb, alive and unaware of the world her parents had fought to give her. It wasn't the ending Ahmadi had imagined when this all began. It wasn't perfect or triumphant or clean, but it was real and hard-won, and theirs. And in the end, that was enough. We are because our people were. We stand because our ancestors stood. We fight because those who came before us fought. And we love because without love, survival has no meaning.